Hello,
Nick.
everyone. I just want to start out by saying it's a real honor to be on KZSU. I actually was a Stanford undergrad and got my master's degree there, and I used to listen to KZSU all the time. So it's a real honor to be on the air. To introduce Harmony, we are a highly scalable public blockchain company. So if you've heard of Bitcoin or Ethereum, we're trying to build a similar decentralized ecosystem that can support not only tokens and not only has its own native currency, but can support decentralized applications for the masses.
So Nick, I wanted to know, since I met Steven and then I know Lee from his VC days, how did you guys
Mm-hmm.
all meet and how did you find a company and who came up with the idea?
Very good question. So the way that most of us on the team met each other was through this group that the founder, Stephen, runs called TGI. And TGI is a group of engineers, founders, investors, people from all different walks of life in the Valley who get together and share drinks and food on a weekly basis. It used to be every Thursday in Sunnyvale. Recently, we've kind of changed that to be every Saturday at our offices in
Ooh.
Cupertino. And basically, that group was running for about 2 years. And throughout that time, many of us had connected over different technologies, whether it was AI or more recently, it became blockchain. And so I actually, most of the other team met each other here in the Valley. I actually happened to meet Stephen in China. I was at the time
Wow.
living in Hong Kong,
Uh-huh.
working at an AI incubator called Zeroth AI. And I had taken a bus over to Shenzhen for dinner. And that dinner was my first experience of TGI. So whenever Stephen travels abroad, he also hosts these events in whichever city that he's in. Shenzhen is just across the border from Hong Kong. And at that dinner, Stephen and I had discussed about the major challenges facing blockchain and also the promise of the technology. And one of the major things that we kept on touching upon was this issue of scalability, which is that blockchain is a really phenomenal new sort of foundational technology. But most of the existing blockchain protocols are really limited by their ability to scale, meaning their ability to actually, support lots of users and support lots of transactions. And so we kind of we're discussing this problem, and later on, we kept in touch after that dinner. And Stephen, reached out to me with his white paper. I gave it a look, sent it around to some friends. And we got all really excited about, trying to build a new, more scalable protocol. And that's what Harmony is. It's a protocol that's trying to solve this problem from the ground up. So blockchain is not just, there are many layers to the technology because it exists on top of the public internet. So essentially what any blockchain protocol is a group of computers that are talking to each other over the internet using, TCP, IP protocols, and they are basically coordinating a network of computers to agree on a certain, state of the world. So in Bitcoin, that is a list of transactions and unspent transaction outputs, meaning like coins. It's sort of like there's a list. The Bitcoin sort of ledger is a list of all past transactions and all current coins that are still kind of in existence and haven't been spent yet. So I guess what I was trying to get back to sort of the infrastructure piece, most people had focused when they were trying to tackle scalability on the higher levels, the algorithms, which are very important. There's a class of algorithms called consensus algorithms, which sort of form the basis of how you can, coordinate these computers to agree on the state of the world. But there's more fundamental layers that are at play, and that's where Harmony wanted to sort of leverage our expertise to solve. So a lot of the team comes from backgrounds in Google, Amazon, Apple, or Microsoft. Deploying large-scale systems, whether it's in search or in AWS, cloud infrastructure. So there's a lot of insights that we have, beyond just, let's say, consensus algorithms to, systems optimizations, meaning the kernel, the operating systems that, these computers are running on, as well as the underlying networking infrastructure, meaning how do we leverage Internet Protocol and the available bandwidth to accelerate the processing of this network.
So Nick, just for the listeners, what's the difference between consensus and protocol?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to dive into that. So a protocol is, it's a very broad term, right? Even outside of computer science, a protocol is basically an agreement between multiple parties of how to, coordinate their activity. So like, you can even think of social behavior as sort of a protocol. Like, what's polite? Like when I come to someone's house, maybe I take off my shoes. That's like a protocol in Asia, or, in Japan, when I'm done with my meal, maybe when I'm leaving the restaurant, I tell them thank you and I bow. That's a protocol. But protocols in computer science have to do with, think of the machines as the human beings, these computers, and they have a protocol which is like a preordained agreement of how they should communicate. And so that's all a protocol really is. And so, the blockchain protocol is just a sort of, those rules are sort of listed out in the software. So someone writes these rules into software, and then people can install that software on their computer, connect it to the internet, and then all these computers can start talking to each other according to those rules. And a blockchain protocol has a very specific result, which is that these machines are not just sharing information. Like the internet protocols are about sending information from the originator to the recipient. But a blockchain protocol is all about actually making it so that all the computers are in sync, so they're all in agreement. So it's also about sending information, but it's about agreeing on information, and that's where the notion of consensus comes in. So consensus is this notion of how do we agree on something. So one of the core problems that Bitcoin solves is that if you're trying to coordinate a decentralized money, well, if you think of money at all, you need to basically have some way of agreeing on who has how much money. And now if I were able to not hack in, but if I were able to just edit my account balance to whatever I wanted, let's say I just wanted to make up $1 million out of thin air, then that wouldn't be a very good way for a money system, because then money would have no value. But in the current banking and financial infrastructure, the way that's avoided is that we have these centralized entities, banks, who make sure that no one's cheating. Right? In many ways, my money is already digital. It's already online. I can access it through my phone or on my laptop and send money to someone else completely digitally. But the thing that's old about money right now is the fact that we rely on the bank. They're the ones who kind of control where money can go and who has how much money. They're the gatekeepers. Not that they control it per se, but they're the ones who are able to change those numbers. And the notion of consensus is important because if we were instead able to eliminate these trusted third parties that are providing a real service by making sure no one's doing a double spend or creating money out of thin air, but what if we were able to create a decentralized mechanism that achieves the same result? And that's where consensus comes in. One of the key ways of doing this is by making sure that everyone is in agreement of which transactions have been processed and are valid. And so Bitcoin is essentially this list, a sequential list of all the different transactions that have ever happened all the way since the Genesis block, the very first time that Bitcoin was created back in January 3rd, 2019. So the consensus is important because it enables us to, let's say, for example, the classic problem is what's called a double spend, which is where I have, let's say, 10 Bitcoin, right? And I want to spend 8 Bitcoin I'm going to give 8 Bitcoin to Michelle, and I want to give 10 Bitcoin to Stephen. And now I send both of those. I tell different parts of the network. I tell different people. Let's say it's just the three of us are making up this network: Michelle, myself, and Stephen. I can tell Michelle, "Hey, Michelle, look, I have 10 Bitcoin. I can prove that to you because it's written down." And I say, "Hey, I want to give you 8 of my Bitcoin." And then I turn to Stephen and I say, "Hey, Stephen, I want to give you 10 of my Bitcoin. Look, you can see I have 10. You guys can both see that I have 10 Bitcoin, but that's not enough. We have to come into, obviously, I don't have 18, so I can't pay both of you. So these two transactions that I'm trying to execute are mutually exclusive. Now, the way you guys have to come into agreement about which one of those transactions is valid and which one is invalid. And that's where consensus comes in. We need to, between the three of us in our network, come into agreement about which transaction will go through and which transaction can't go through. If we can't come to consensus, then all of a sudden, if I've convinced you and Stephen simultaneously that I've sent you 8 and 10 Bitcoin respectively, then we have a real problem because I'm now creating money. So consensus is the way in which we are able to resolve conflicting realities into one so that we're in sync.
In terms of consensus, and I just wanted to go and ask about it later because I know that there's like proof of work, proof of stake, designated proof of stake. I am very interested in learning about, who came up with the idea, and what was your aha moment? I mean, is it because you see that there's a need for this product and Ethereum may not be strong enough to scale?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the aha moment was, I think it happened to a lot of people in mid to late 2017 when Ethereum was really picking up steam. A lot of people, a lot of developers, a lot of individuals all around the world were really excited by what you could do on Ethereum, and there's a lot of doubt now after 2018 was such a tough year, but let's be honest, what Ethereum and Bitcoin have done is absolutely incredible. This is a completely new paradigm that we've never seen before in the world. We're at the very early stages of it, and in many ways, these technologies weren't meant to be fully fledged out the gate. And so it's not surprising that they've run into some fundamental limitations. And that was the aha moment. A lot of people in mid-2017 was, it was two kind of realizations. One was, wow, this technology is amazing, and there's a lot of potential here. But then the second realization was, there's also a problem, which is that these networks are really slow and kind of ungainly. And people started to think about, man, if we could redesign this to make it, more secure, faster, there are a whole list of different problems that we need to solve to really make blockchain ready for production and ready to scale to billions of people as we aspire to. But the one that we specifically focused on is scalability because that's really in our DNA as a team. So I think the aha moment is that people from existing industries can leverage the existing techniques, best practices, and sort of newest cutting edge research to improve the state of blockchain. And that was sort of the aha moment. And in our white paper, we listed out 3 main ways in which we want to improve that infrastructure. The first being networking, which I mentioned. and we have a couple of networking experts on the team. One spent 15 years at NTT, which is the Japanese equivalent of AT&T, and the other one spent a number of years at AWS infrastructure. And so they've done a lot of networking in the past. And when they look at blockchain, they weren't really aware of blockchain, but when they did become aware of it, they said, wow, we can apply all these new types of technologies to this that are industry standard from where we come from, but in blockchain people aren't necessarily aware of it. So there's a lot of different terms that perhaps wouldn't mean much to people, but a few really cool strategies or technologies in networking that we're using are just a few off the top of my head. One is called stemless routing, which is about how we can route transactions through the network in a faster, more efficient way. Another one is rapid queue encoding, which is using erasure coding to also send block transactions throughout the network faster to reach consensus and speed up the speed of the network. Again, maybe we're getting into too much jargon, but I guess I could go through the other areas. But suffice to say that the real aha moment was there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in blockchain that we can be the first ones to develop and really take blockchain to the next level as a technological infrastructure.
And I think a lot of people are really excited about the movement, or sometimes people call it a revolution. And when you guys are starting the company, there's lots of opportunities. So what is your overall vision? What do you see the company in a year, in 5 years, in 30 years? Even though, 30 years could have just been a vision of the future.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. In many ways, a blockchain company is not really a company in the traditional sense. So we do have an operating company, but really, it's kind of just an open source software project that happens to have a token associated with it that actually apportions the services or gives you the right to work in the network, to mine. So it's not really, there's not like this notion of making a profit or necessarily like growing in the traditional sense of, having more and more employees. Instead of profit, you kind of want instead for your token to appreciate in value. So it's all about how do you, first of all, it has to do with token economic design. How do you design the economic mechanisms around your token such that they attract value to the ecosystem? And then the other piece is you don't grow normally, like you wouldn't talk about having 500 employees. I mean, you might, but it's more important actually to have more contributors, more people part of your community, more active wallets, more DApps, decentralized applications running on top of your network. So it's a little bit less straightforward than a traditional business, but it's also more exciting because it's more of a social movement than a profit generating enterprise. So a lot of us previously were involved deeply in various open source projects. So for us, it's exciting that now we have this kind of new way in which you can fund and finance open source projects. And it's more than even just a open source software project. It becomes a new platform. People hopefully will be able to earn their living by servicing these networks. You're already seeing that with Bitcoin and Ethereum. People mining or people who are just full-time developers, and they're paid in the token to make their living. So I think for us, in the near term, you talked about the timeline. 1 year from now, I think our vision is to have the first version of our mainnet be already launched 6 months in, and to be attracting users and to have decentralized applications running on top of it. I think every network, it takes a while to really grow because it has to be kind of an organic process. I think there's a lot of other projects that try to, throw money at the problem, and who knows, maybe that might work. But I think really for these kinds of open source projects, you need people to really believe in it themselves, and needs to come from a very strong core. But anyway, within 1 year, I'd love to see our network be live and be used, and I'd like to see us be very meaningful and useful to the ecosystem in certain metrics. The first one being that we can scale to thousands, tens of thousands of transactions per second on a live network. And also, I would like to see our network be significantly cheaper to operate on and to use than the existing networks. Nowadays, I mean, at the peak, Bitcoin transactions were, in the multiples of dollars. Now they're much further down than maybe 30 cents. And Ethereum transactions at the peak, I'm not sure how much they were, but now they're about 20 cents, which doesn't sound like that much, especially if you're sending, a good amount of money. But let's say you want to run a decentralized application, and every time, let's say it's a Facebook application, every time you click like, you have to pay 20 cents. The fundamental cost is very important because it can rule out a lot of very meaningful applications that people want to build. These networks, have to be not only scalable in terms of that they can support a large amount of users, but they also have to be cost effective in that they don't, they don't put these applications out of business before they can even get off the ground. So that's sort of where I want to see us. And then, in the longer term horizon, I think, if we're talking, 10, if not 30 years out, the long-term vision for blockchain as a whole, and I would love for Harmony to be a fundamental player in this, is to really fundamentally shift the power structures of the world, not only in finance, but even in information, internet ecosystems. I think the issue with having such a connected world is that power tends to aggregate. And I don't think blockchain is a panacea. It won't, solve this problem. I think a lot of this is kind of just inherent to the nature of the universe, but or just of society. But we do have a tremendous concentration of wealth and power, not only in financial institutions, but even in large tech companies. And I think blockchain has a promise to really start to rebalance that power and make it more equitable for people. And it will also unleash more innovation. So let me dive into that a little bit. For example, a lot of us, actually come from big tech companies such as Facebook or Google, Apple, Amazon. And when you think about what gives a lot of these companies their advantage, it's actually the amount of data that they have about users. And in many ways, we kind of hand that over to them for free. Every time I use Google search or use Gmail or any of the Google ecosystem applications, or anytime I log into Facebook and I add a like or like someone's photo on Instagram, all this data about me gets aggregated into one centralized place, whether it's Facebook or Google, and those companies then leverage that data to make enormous profit through advertising or what have you. And we've seen the problems with this, right? It's been glaringly obvious in 2018 with Cambridge Analytica and lots of other sort of privacy scandals. And the power of data is becoming very, very clear to everyone. And, it kind of happened while we were asleep. When Facebook was first getting started, no one really saw into the future about how this would, could affect the world in certain dystopian types of ways. And so I think fundamentally it's what blockchain can do is kind of re-architecture the internet to make it more fair, more distributed. So
Nick, I have a question for you.
That's something that in the long range we really want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Such that we don't have one Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg sitting behind it owning all the data. There is a Facebook, but it's more like a public good. It's part of the commons, and you as a user control your data, and you can, hopefully you'll still be able to monetize it if you want, but it's within your control. And you couldn't, like, let's take the Cambridge Analytica example. Like, someone couldn't make a decision on behalf of you to sell your data to some political campaign organization who's trying to basically hack your mind without you knowing it. So that's sort of the long-term promise of blockchain is this concept of decentralization. I think it can become kind of a bit of a buzzword, but it really is meaningful in today's world.
So Nick, I'm afraid of Animal Farm. I think the generation of the internet has come and go, and we saw what came out of it, like what you said. We saw centralization, we saw dominance of men, and we saw a lot of abuses of our data and our privacy. And I am afraid of Animal Farm. Do you think that the next generation of the internet will be different?
Absolutely. And I also am afraid of Animal Farm in 1984, and I think it's actually uncanny how accurate some of Orwell's, predictions were in those novels. I think it's still in very much its infancy. I think people last year were very excited about making this new decentralized web a reality, and many of us still are. But I think the hype and the enthusiasm got a bit ahead of the reality.
I think,
and the reality is that this is still mostly an idea at this stage. We have a proof of concept, which is existing networks like Ethereum or Bitcoin, but we don't have anything that's at all close to ready for transforming the web at its current scale. And furthermore, even if, let's say, we solve the technology problem, there's still a long way to go in terms of adoption. The thing I will say about adoption with blockchain technology is that because of there's sort of this magic of blockchain, which is the incentive mechanisms. And I think, and we've kind of already seen that in many ways, blockchain can be one of the most viral technologies we've ever seen. If you look at what happened last year, a lot of people promoting Bitcoin or Ethereum, obviously they believe in it. It becomes almost a religion, but it's also that they have their own economic stake in it. Let's say I hold Bitcoin, then it's in my interest to get more people, onto the Bitcoin train, and that then increases Bitcoin's value, which benefits me. So blockchain has a way of actually turning people into evangelists, into stakeholders. So it's very different than Facebook, where let's say I was an early adopter of Facebook. Mm-hmm. I may have brought some of my friends onto the platform, but with no benefit to me. Maybe in certain tech companies, they do these kinds of reward programs, like, oh, invite a friend, you get $10. But it's very different in blockchain. If you are a stakeholder and you hold this token, then it's really in your interest to become a spokesperson, to become an ambassador, and to bring more and more people into it. So I think, at least when it comes to adoption, perhaps when the technology is ready, we will see really rapid adoption. It's going to be, someone doing some really advanced social media marketing alchemy to all, convert the world, and then, overnight it'll go from, 0 to millions of users. But anyway, I do feel strongly that we will see in the next 10 years the beginnings of the shift from the existing centralized internet to the decentralized one.
I think I was about to jump in and say that I think at the beginning I see, there are really, really passionate people who believe there's a revolution. And then there's really, really greedy people who just wants to take advantage of the time.
Mhm.
And they usually come from very centralized organization who, in my experience, may not believe that women. I mean, I work at some places where they don't put women on their website. Even if they
Mhm.
support
Mhm.
them, which is kind of weird. And and I see genuine ambassadors. Like people that you don't have to pay them, but they will speak about the project.
Yeah.
And that is more effective than paying $5 to sign up for a website. And because I think there's a difference between um, I don't know, I want to use the word cheap.
Mhm.
There's a lot of campaigns that giveaways. Like people would do things because they wanted to get something. And then there are people who are genuine. They're truly interested in a project or a concept or an idea or a mission, and they really wanted to fully
Mhm.
support that, and they'll go out of their way to help that project succeed. And I see a lot of that in the blockchain space.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And if we look back at 2017 and early 2018, that was a big part of what was happening. There were people, people were noticing that there was a, massive, you know, speculation going on. And that speculation was grounded in some reality, which was that we have this new technology and new frontier with a lot of promise. But the people that kind of had the worst intentions were also drawn in by the fact that, frankly, we have this very confusing, hard to understand technology. It's very opaque to most people, but it's also very easy to create these narratives of, oh, we're going to change the world, we're going to decentralize this, or oh, we're going to create a new Uber for, but it's going to be on Ethereum. And people, spinning these tales. And actually, in some of these cases, these people probably actually believed that they could do it because they didn't know, they themselves, the founders of some of these projects, didn't know themselves limitations they were dealing with. Vitalik himself said, I can't remember when, but he said, if you're trying to build a decentralized Uber on Ethereum, it's not going to work. It's not even close. And there was no lack of projects, trying to, sell that exact idea. So the issue was a combination of real genuine people thinking that they could change the world, when the truth was their idea was just too early. It's very similar to the internet bubble when, I don't know what the famous one, maybe it's pets.com, I'm not sure. But there were many examples of
Polyweb.com,
internet company
webvan.com.
ideas that were just 10 years too early. And I think that was a lot of what happened last year. But also there were some genuine frauds. People who, for example, BitConnect, that was a very massive scandal where they said, hey, give us your Bitcoin and we will give you, an absurd amount of daily return on your investment. And it was just a Ponzi scheme, basically. So there are always sharks that, come in when investors become a little bit too eager to put their money. And we definitely saw a lot of that. And a lot of it was done, even, people were trying to scam some of our people. When we opened up online and on Telegram, there were people impersonating me and various other team members and, sending messages to people in our community saying, hey, send me Ether. And so in many ways, it's difficult to combat. It's kind of just the speculation is sort of inherent to whenever you have a new technological wave. And I think the speculation in turn actually fuels the next sort of round of development and innovation. So
Yeah,
like it's in many ways why Harmony today exists. People were willing, they believed in blockchain and were willing to speculate on something that was very early, just a white paper and a bunch of engineers wanting to change the world. And they were, willing to put money into that. And so, I think the speculation will hopefully spawn a new generation of blockchain that will be able to deliver on some of the promises that were made in 2017 and 2018. It's just a little bit too early.
So Nick, I think it's a good transition into your team,
Hmm.
personally. So, since we're talking about people and, idealism, which I think is important for innovation and technology. So how is your team like at Harmony? Do you have a mix of business people, blockchain developers, technologists, marketing, and financial members? Because I think all aspect of it is important because if you don't have someone in charge of the funds, we need treasury because a lot of startups go
Hmm.
down because they don't know how to manage their ether or money. And then
Yeah.
technology is important because obviously you guys are building technology and marketing and community as well, and it seems like you have that already. So can you really tell us a little bit about your team?
Sure, I would love to dive into that. So, and one interesting thing about our team is that actually all of us, except for, so there are a total of 12 of us,
Yep.
full time at least, and we have lots of collaborators and advisors around the world. But there are 12 of us that are really full time and here in person. And the interesting thing is actually all of us but one have an engineering background. Now, that's not necessarily what we do as our role in the team. And some of us have, other experience that's not engineering related. For example, Sahil has, he has an engineering undergrad degree, but he has an MBA from Harvard Business School. So he's more of like a business-minded person. But I think when you're dealing with a technology like blockchain, and it really is an infrastructure, at least what we're doing is very much infrastructure oriented. You have to be literate in the technology itself. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of lost and not be able to be in touch. And even a lot of the marketing that we're doing is not to end users per se. I mean, it's important to get people to believe in your protocol, but a lot of our marketing at the end of the day is to developers. We need to send messages to people who are also highly technical about why they should use Harmony as the base layer on which they build their decentralized application. So in many ways, our team is very engineer heavy, but I think that's really an advantage because it gives us sort of that depth of knowledge and that ability to kind of, no matter what role we're in, to all be on the same page. Now, diving a bit deeper, there are currently 4 of us that are more on the operations and business marketing and community side. And then the rest of us are like developers. So within our developer team, we have a split between people who are more working on the consensus and the smart contract pieces, which is sort of like the higher level of abstraction. And then we have people that are working more on the networking and sort of system side, like how writing the code for when a new node comes online and wants to join the network. How does it discover the other peers in the network? Or when I want to send a transaction, from my node to your node, how do we coordinate that? Or when I want to come to consensus about a block of transactions, how do we send that block around the network in a really fast and efficient way? So within engineering, there's sort of different divisions, but they're all kind of focused. I will say again, I feel really blessed and lucky to be working with such talented engineers who, they have tens of years in the industry, so they're really whizzes, and I just feel so lucky because every day I'm learning something new from them. I'm more on the business side myself, but I have a bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering, so I am kind of a computer scientist at heart as well. Lee is a member of the team who is actually more, actually comes from an investing background. He's the only person without an engineering degree, but he's been in the tech industry for many years out here in the Valley at a venture capital firm called Global Silicon Valley. So he's really good with people. He's really good with coordinating meetups and events. He's good at managing relationships. He's good at being a face for the company. So it takes all people. I'll also mention a couple of other individuals. Nicholas who's mostly operations, he co-founded, or actually was the founder of a VR startup before this, and he was a CEO and founder, and so he has a lot of experience in a different industry, but with a lot of carryover of, starting a company, running a company, all the legal stuff, all the finances. You mentioned treasury management. That is a huge, very important thing. You raise, millions of dollars, then how do you, manage it in a way that's responsible and that also maximizes the amount of time runway that your company has. So that's a huge component. And then lastly, Stephen, who is the main founder and CEO. Now, previously he was, he worked at Microsoft Research and Google before dropping out to start his own map search company called SpotSetter. And then that was acquired by Apple. And after a few years at Apple, he once again dropped out to found Harmony. So we have a lot of serial entrepreneurs or people who, have been involved in startups for a long time. Sahil himself actually was a founder of a startup back in India before his Harvard MBA. And everyone kind of has this entrepreneurial mindset, or they are really, deep on the software side and care a lot about open source and really want to leverage all of their knowledge, the deep knowledge that they have from working in large companies. Hey, Michelle, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. So can you tell us why open consensus is important?
Sure. The concept of open consensus is touches back onto the whole vision for the long term for blockchain, which is that we want a fair, transparent, and inclusive sort of fabric in the world, whether that's for the internet or for the financial system. And so open is really touching in that idea of inclusivity as well as transparency and fairness. So, openness is where, anyone can take part in it, anyone can believe in it and trust in it, anyone can look into what's happening and know that, no one's kind of pulling strings. To go back to Cambridge Analytica, you don't want to have to worry about those kinds of things. You want to live in a world where things are safer and more trustworthy. So that's where open comes in, and consensus is this idea of, if you think about what's special about human beings is that we are a species that can coordinate and collaborate across many, many individuals. And this happens at many scales, from, let's say, the order of a company of 12, like Harmony, all the way up to nations. Or even, multinational corporations, or even just the economy itself is just one giant sort of macroorganism that is coordinating all these resources and labor between, all 7 billion people on the planet. So, but the core thing behind, collaboration and cooperation is consensus and trust. So if I am going to engage with you in some sort of business or any kind of economic engagement, there has to be some notion of trust. There has to be some way for us to come into agreement and have a way of enforcing our agreement. And blockchain is sort of we haven't really improved this technology in a meaningful way for quite a while. I mean, we have laws, and we have a legal system, we have ways of enforcing our laws, we have new corporate structures, new methods for corporate governance, all these things. But if you think about it fundamentally, it's still kind of like, we're using the same technology, at least organizational or the collaborative technology that we've had for hundreds of years. And blockchain is sort of a new generation of technology that it enables for absolutely completely new ways of bringing people together and having them work together for a common cause, or having them engage with each other for their mutual economic benefit. So that's where consensus comes in, and obviously the 10 billion is the end of that sentence. Open consensus for 10 billion in 2050, people project that the world population will level out around 10 billion. And so, by that time, 30 years from now, as we were just talking, we want Harmony to be that infrastructure that enables all 10 billion people around the world to coordinate and make a more just, more beneficial society for everyone.
Awesome. We have a few minutes, so I wanted to ask you, perhaps, what do you think the community should know about Harmony and the project, and what kind of support do you need from the community?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's cool that a lot of our listeners are, here in the Bay Area, I assume. There's probably a lot of people tuning in from the internet around the world, and that's awesome as well. But if you're here in the Valley, please get in touch. We host a meetup every Saturday, and you can actually go and sign up to attend. You'll find it at harmony.one/TGI. That's the name of the meetup. So we'd love to get involved with people who are passionate about blockchain or passionate about technology in general. So that's definitely something to know if you're local or even if you're just passing through. We are also doing quite a number of things in the coming months. One is we're releasing a new white paper. So that will be live sometime next week. So I encourage people, if they're eager to geek out on consensus algorithms or networking or how to scale smart contracts, they should dig in there. We are also launching a program for node operators. So a really key component to any network is having people actually install the software and run their machine and contribute to the network. And obviously, by doing so, you earn tokens, you get paid. But we're really encouraging people to sign up for that, and we can help them. They can be one of the founding nodes of Harmony, and they can potentially, earn tokens that will be really meaningful and be part of a network at the early stages for the future. So that's another thing. If people are eager, you will be able to run a node on Harmony. Unlike Bitcoin, you won't need any mining gear. We are proof of stake network, so you can just mine with your own laptop. So it's easy and accessible for everyone. And that's all I can really think of at this moment. Check us out. You can see us on Telegram or on Twitter. On Twitter, we're Harmony Protocol, one word, and on Telegram, our community is Harmony-1, and our website is harmony.one. So I encourage you to check us out online and give us a shout. We love engaging with people. We have a Discord channel. We are completely open source, so you can also check our GitHub and look through our code if you're a developer. And we have a forum also called talk.harmony.one. And in that forum is where we discuss lots of, really cool topics ranging from, the more technical to the more economic or just very simple. Don't be afraid to get on there and ask us any question. We love engaging with, our community, and we want more supporters. So that's about it.
That's awesome, Nick. I wanted to ask you one last question: is what kind of advice do you want to provide to the larger community? It could be about Stanford, it could be about entrepreneurship, it could be something you learned that helped you grow as a person. But what is that one advice that you wanted to share with the community at large?
That's a really good question. I think my one piece of advice for the broader community is that there's a lot of people going around and saying we're really in the depths of a crypto winter, and there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's circling around the space, and kind of making people lose faith or question what they're doing. And I think my word of advice is to dig deep, and if you really do believe in this vision of a not only a more decentralized internet, but also just a more fair and open sort of social structure, economic structure for the world, then there's no option. And the reality is that certainly there may be ups and downs. There'll be many bumps in the road, and we may be in the troughs of one of those bumps. But in reality, in 10 years, I'm very confident that blockchain will be one of those technologies that ends up really meaningfully changing the world. So if you're a young person too, let's say you're still a Stanford student and you're looking at different industries you want to get involved in, really take a hard look at blockchain. It's an extremely interesting space with so much potential, and we need all kinds of people. This conversation may have been very technical. It may have gone over your head because there's a lot of very industry-specific terms that we're using, but in reality, it's not that hard, and we need all kinds of people. You don't need to be a developer. You can just be someone who is into marketing or into spreading the message, or you're an economist. We need people from all different walks to help us on this journey. So I just want people to not be disheartened or get distracted by the price. Price is just we give it too much power over our thinking. So let's reconnect with the fundamentals about the kind of revolution we're trying to start, and let's all go there together.
With that, I just wanted to thank you, Nick, for coming and speaking about harmony and open consensus.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's really been an honor for me. Thank you all for listening, and again, check us out online. We'd love to engage with you all.
All right, see you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye, Michelle.
Bye-bye.